Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Cardfight Vanguard Prism Bermuda Triangle deck profile for standard format February 2021. With the release of Twinkle Melody, we were given a few Prism cards for standard format, which Prisms were my favorite of the Bermuda Triangle deck during Premium and G format. Also during Limit Break, all the way back to their first introduction, they were my favorite deck, and I'm definitely considering building a Premium version of the deck using all the additional strides we received for all the different formats of Vanguard, and then introducing the new cards to it for a very, very strong playstyle, I would say, for sure. So if you all want to see a updated version of Premium format, I haven't made a deck profile on Premium for a while, definitely comment down below if you're interested, and I'll definitely consider it. But let's go ahead and get started with the standard deck for Prisms for Bermuda Triangle, with our main grade 3 being the new Prism Image Vert. With this card on Vanguard Circle, once per turn, you can Soul Blast 1 and bind a card with Prism in its card name from your rear or drop zone. If you bound a card, this unit gets Drive +1 until end of turn. So it's a once per turn, but being able to give your Prism Image Vert triple drive just that easily, and the fact that it doesn't even have to be on the field, it can even be on the drop zone, because we are definitely limited to the number of Prism cards we have in the deck, only having one grade 1, one grade 2, and one grade 3 for standard format, which is why I'm also definitely excited to consider a premium deck, because then I can make a full Prism deck using all the different cards. But on Vanguard Circle, when it attacks, counter +1, return all of your front row rear guards to your hand. Call up to one card with Prism in its card name from your bind zone to rear. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you may call a total of 2 cards with Prism in its card name to rear instead of 1. So all the better for that setup. It is a once per turn for the bind effect of this card, but you can still have plenty of setup early on, and then on the second turn for the bind of this card, call out an additional unit to the field. So just really, really good for that setup, the multiple attacks, and the fact that you're not limited to bouncing Prism cards with this card's first skill makes it all the better for that consistency of the other cards you could potentially call out, even just being able to call out another grade 3. With Prism Image Vert being my main focus for the grade 3s, I only run one other additional grade 3 in the deck, and that's just one Perfect Performance Angie. Having the additional bounce effect of Perfect Performance Angie means that I could potentially bounce a Vert that I could call to my rear, back to my hand, for me to then re-ride properly onto Angie if I get this card, let's say, off a draw, and I still need that one additional grade 3 ride. But I have plenty of other cards for draw power and just searching out grade 3s in the deck altogether. So I'm not too worried about not riding into my low grade 3 count, just because of the fact that I'll see this card more often with all the additional search and draw power I have in the deck. But Angie's just great for those additional generic boosts that can provide in the deck for sure. So just one additional copy of this for the grade 3s. Moving on now to the grade 2s, which the grade 2s and the grade 1s all have a higher count in the deck just for making up for the numbers of the grade 3s. But for the Prism card, I run 4 Prism Image Rosa. On Vanguard or rear, when placed, counter +1, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, reveal up to 2 cards with Prism in their card name from among them, put 1 into your hand, and then bind up to 1 other card and shuffle your deck. So this also helps to set up with Prism Image Vert, being able to have the additional 2 units in your bind zone, and then having the toe to call out just by having your opponent be at a grade 3 for a much easier setup. And on rear guard, when placed from the bind zone, all of your front row units with Prism in their card name get plus 10,000 power. So this can add to the additional fact that if you don't boost with your back row units and then just have them boost the new units you call out with Prism Image Vert, you can hit for some pretty high numbers altogether, with Rosa being your main go-to setup. That's why you want to run 4 of this card, so you can consistently see other copies of Rosa with her own skill and the additional power if you set up 2 of them in the front row for you to use. For the other grade 2 support, I also run 4 Top Idol Aqua. With Aqua on Vanguard or rear during your turn, if you have another unit in the same column as this one, it gets plus 5,000 power. So if you're saving your boost units for Top Idol Aqua in the back row to be bounced back to your hand, then calling out the Prism units, at least Aqua can attack with 15,000 power on her own, not having to rely on the unit that boosted, just having to rely on the fact that it has to be in the same column as her. And on Vanguard or rear, when placed, return up to 1 of your other normal units on rear to your hand. And if you return a card, draw a card, and discard a card from your hand. You may only use the ability of a card of the same name once a turn, but the bind power for Prism Image Vert means that you can also discard a Prism to the drop zone, and then just bind it with Prism Image Vert, making up for all of the cards you invested in for the draw power of Top Idol Aqua together. And then also for the last of the grade 2s, I run 4 Choco Love Heart Lissolette. From the hand, it can be called as a grade 1, so great for the early game setup, but also on Vanguard or Rear when placed, look at the top card of your deck and call it to Rear or put it into your Soul. You may only use this ability with a card of the same name once a turn, but building up the Soul, especially since we only have the 4 go-to Prism cards in the deck, so whether we ride into it, we're going to run out of Soul eventually for the additional calls, depending on how long the games could go on. So being able to have cards to set up that card in the Soul with Choco Love Heart Lissolette definitely does help for the initial setup of all of your different cards in your deck, or just calling them out onto the rear if we need more consistency with calling rear guards out. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. For the last of the Prism cards, I run 4 Prism Image Clear. On Vanguard, when placed, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 1 grade 2 or greater card with Prism and its card name from among them. Put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. And on Rear, when placed from the bind zone, bind a card with Prism and its card name from your drop zone. Draw a card, and this unit gets plus 10,000 power until end of turn. So both this and Rosa have awesome skills for power boosting, and with Clear having the draw power as well, make for a great Vanguard ride target. Just being able to search out the proper cards you need for any of your plays, whether it be Rosa or Clear, and then having the additional bind zone power for the plus 10,000 power on the field for you to rely on for the cards you call out. So definitely want to run 4 of this because most of the time it's my preferred go-to ride target. You still have some other pretty good ride targets in the deck when it comes to your grade 1 ride targets for searching out your grade 3. Clear just doesn't limit you to the grade 3 since you can also search for the grade 2 option, but most of the time I do try to go for the grade 3 just because you need it as your ideal ride target, being Prism Image Vert. But for more of the grade 3 search power, I run 4 Mermaid Idol Sedna. On Vanguard or Rear during your turn, if you have another unit in the same column as this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and when placed from hand, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from among them, put into your hand and shuffle your deck, and then if you put a card into your hand, discard a card. It's the grade 3 search power generic card for Bermuda Triangle, but just more the ideal cards because searching with your Clear can be unsuccessful. So if you have the additional Sedna in your hand, you're checking at least 12 cards from the top of your deck and hopefully hitting the Prism Image Vert you need for that ideal ride target. Like I said, you have the Angie to rely on as backup, but only running one of that card since I do want my main focus to be the Prism Image Vert that we want to have as our main go-to Vanguard. And I also run 4 Mermaid Idol Ellie. This one being more of the defensive card of the deck on Vanguard or Rear. When it attacks or the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, search your deck for up to 1 Mermaid Idol Ellie, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck, and if you put a card into hand, put this unit from the rear guard and retire it. So it's, like I said, search power. If this card contributes to the attack, you can retire it and then just add more to your hand to guard with. And when placed on the guard circle, you can put a Mermaid Idol Ellie from your drop zone on the bottom of your deck, and this unit gets plus 10,000 shield until end of that battle. Putting a 20,000 shield almost makes it as strong as a Sentinel critical trigger, but just being able to rely on the recycle power for Mermaid Idol Ellie, because then you can draw into another one, having the one you guarded with in the drop zone, being able to then have that additional guard, keep going and going. You just need that setup for the search, and then you have more and more Ellies to guard with. And I also run, to finish off the grade 1s, 4 Distinguished Wink Radka, with Ellie being the only grade 1 I don't want to ride in this deck. You basically, when this card on Vanguard hits, you draw a card. So it's draw power, and on rear guard, when you can retire it to look at 2 cards on top of your deck, put 1 from among them into your hand, 1 from among them into your drop zone, and this ability only be used by a card with this name once a turn. But you have the drop zone set up with your Prism rear guards, but also just being able to search out, once again, the most important card in the deck using this one is why I like to run 4 of it. So if you don't go into Sedna or Clear for your ride target, you at least have, I would say, the next best thing for the option of pressuring your opponent with the attack, especially if you went second during the game. And then lastly, for the grade 0s, I run for the starter, Bermuda Triangle Cadet Shizuku. There wasn't a Prism starter. It wouldn't have been as relevant unless you Soul Blasted it and set it up in the drop zone to call out, which would be cool. But I know we're also getting a new Prism card in the collection set coming out, so definitely be looking forward to a Nectaria when we receive her. But just the generic Quick Shield draw power for the grade 0. And for the trigger lineup, I'm running 8 criticals, so 4 Lover Hope Rena and 4 Docking Shooter Apelia for the critical lineup. For the Sentinel, I decided to stick with the draw trigger set Sentinel just being the setup for shield, and just also being able to, you know, discard more Prism cards to the graveyard to bind with Prism for that setup, and just more protection against your opponent with this card. And then lastly, for the heal, I decided to choose the Appetite Cheer Pipilea for the heal. It just seemed more fitting than the other heal we had for the Prism deck, just sticking to the, I would say, more cheery design that a lot of the different Prism cards have in the deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Like I said, I'll definitely consider looking into building a premium format Prism deck, especially just seeing how it can mix with all the Prism support, which is a pretty good amount, including the Stride Zone and all the other older cards we had for the deck, just having to replace the units like Vert, Rosa, and Clear with their newer copies in the deck. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.